Joining us now is co-founder Next Year SPD, an international development consulting firm. He is right now in Tennessee in the United States. Dr. Ndumokolo, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And I know that you have been monitoring, the developments out of Ukraine, the war going on there, Russia's invasion, and, the question of where Africa lies in all of this. What are your thoughts?
First, I think it brings a challenge to Africa, both positive challenges and negative challenges, but it depends on how Africa decides to take it. Like you stated, issues of food shortage is something that within the short term we're going to grapple with that. I don't know how we're going to deal with that, especially in the horns of Africa where we know that Egypt is importing from Ukraine and Russia, and in turn supplies to Somalia and even up to South Sudan. But most importantly is that we have the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which Africa might use this opportunity to deepen it and see how, as a continent, we can start trading much within our geographical boundaries and be able to have a borderless Africa where people trade among themselves. I think that might be an opportunity for us if we can cash in on it. Again, my other thinking is that in terms of peace in Africa, it might be an opportunity for us to say, okay, Russia within the last 5 years has played a significant role in terms of mercenaries that it supplies to Africa. Will these mercenaries go back to Russia to fight and allow us to deal with our issues ourselves? We are yet to deal with that, because if you look at what is happening, some African leaders, especially where you have autocratic leaders who don't want to leave power, love Putin because Putin is an example of who they want to be. So they want to remain in power, so they want to support whatever thing that Putin is doing. You find out that about 17 of them absented from voting during the last time during the UN vote on Russia invasion of Ukraine. So there are a lot of mix and match things that we need to look at.
And when you're talking about the mercenaries in Africa, I suppose you're referring to Mali, where the United States accused, the U.S. as well as some other countries have accused Russia of sending mercenaries to, which hasn't been proven anyway. But again, you mentioned, security, and that's where we're headed, because much of the insurgency in this part of the world, sub-Saharan Africa, has been attributed to the war in Libya. What could come out of what's going on in Ukraine right now?
First, there are two ways to it. Europe and Northern America are going to look towards Ukraine. It means it's going to lead to a reduction in the international aid we get in Africa. That is very obvious. So most of their commitment is going to go towards that side, and it's going to affect us. Countries like France that ordinarily would have mobilized, or because of their post-colonial colonial attachment to Francophone countries, always mobilize support and aid to these African countries, are more likely to look towards Ukraine. It's going to affect the help we will be getting around that area. But in terms of mercenaries, no matter how Russia tries to deny it, everybody knows that the Wagner group is a Russian mercenary group. And the state of Russia supports them, even though they always deny it. But some of them are friends and associates of President Putin. So we all know that. So even how they try to deny it, we all know that it's true. And that's why you find countries like Mali and Central African Republic, they all absented from voting against Russia during the UN vote against Russian invasion of Ukraine. But most importantly, in terms of security, that's why a lot of people were saying there's a kind of a double standard, that if the West did not invade Libya, probably the small and light weapons that we see today flowing into the Sahel wouldn't that be as much as it was because of the role played by Colonel Gaddafi. The exit of Gaddafi has shown us that the West didn't think through what they did. So now we are suffering with that. So what is happening, it might shape up a lot of things in Africa. First, the war, what I don't know is that, because everybody knows that the supply of most of these arms are coming from Russia and most of the Eastern Europe. Would there be a reduction in supply of small and light weapons into Africa? That is yet to be understood, but I think it's going to shape a lot of things in Africa in time to come.
Also, Dr. Nwokolo, talking about Mali, some experts is saying that Mali appears to be caught between Russia and Ukraine. Pro-Russian sentiment has gradually increased in Africa. And looking at the partnerships that, African countries have with Russia, some have said that Africa, well, some countries should not be aligned at this time. What do you think?
When Western countries or the West supply arms to you, it comes with a lot of conditionalities. If we remember in 2015, a lot of people will say that President Goodluck lost the election because the West refused to sell arms to him. And part of what they claimed for not selling arms to him was that probably President Goodluck was going to use the arms to, there were going to be a lot of collateral damage. There were a lot of, I don't want to say governance issues, but a lot of conditionalities were tied to why arms were not given to him to fight Boko Haram. But flip it on the side of Russia. Russia can sell arms to you without those conditionalities, just like China would deal with you without any of those conditionalities. So you find out that most African countries where you have strong leaders that don't want to leave power, where you have military regimes that want to extend their stays, they look towards Russia and China to get arms, and they will get those arms without conditionalities. So obviously, with what is happening, your enemy's enemy is your enemy, and your enemy's friend is your enemy. So they're gonna go the way of Russia just to make sure they support Russia, knowing that Russia for now is their friend. So they have to support whoever supports them.
Do you think that Russia, with the economic, the economic balance shifting right now in the world, do you think that Russia might be looking to Africa, for some of those, socio-economic support it had received from Europe and, the other parts of the West?
I don't know. It depends on what Africa doesn't. What much do we have apart from untapped natural resources? So, in terms of support, I don't know the much support Africa could give to Russia unless we're going to supply human beings to go and fight alongside them. That's the
But
only thing
at the beginning, you said that it depends on how Africa takes it, the initiative.
Yeah, it depends on. For an instance, I'll give you an instance. We can turn it around and it works for us. I'll give you an instance. In terms of fossil energy, the European Parliament or European Union, sometime September last year, banned all banks from funding fossil energies around the world, energy infrastructure that has to do with fossil. So now that they are struggling because they want to get out of anything that connects them to Russia, in terms of Russia holding them to ransom because of natural gas. So Africa can lobby now to say, we need more funding in the area of natural gas. We need more funding in the area of, fossil fuel. So it can work for us if we lobby along that side. So that's the kind of things we can get. So apart from that, because it will be if they are looking at Africa it's not really a big threat to them, the West can decide to ask their funders to fund more natural resource exploration in Africa than what we have here. I think these are the kind of things we can get out of this war. Apart from that, the other things we can get are being able to look at those determining factors that we were overlooking. especially trading amongst ourselves, and ask ourselves, where in Africa can we actually start growing wheat? How do we trade among ourselves? What is it about this world that we benefit from? So that's where I think Africa can look into more and then be able to exploit the opportunity and make something out of it.
So in the end, Dr. Nwokolo, what is the worst that can come out of this conflict in Ukraine? I'm sure you're already seeing, the shift in global politics and the geopolitical alignments that are going on already.
Well, for now, my thinking is that the war will stretch for a bit wide. Maybe there'll be a ceasefire, but the economic sanctions on Russia is going to go for a very long time. So Russia, in turn, might start allying with a lot of other countries, especially Africa, to see whether they can get trade partners. But remember that the West will come hard on these African countries. So it depends on what you want to do, who you want to ally with, what are you going to benefit from allying with whichever country you want to ally with. So either way you go to, you have to actually look at your pros and cons before you go that way.
But also, when we look at everything, who do you think should take responsibility for the war?
In my head, I want to say that diplomacy would have sorted most of these things out. I really don't want to say that it's Russia, but if you look at it in terms of percentage, you could say Russia should take 60%, the West should take 40%.
And we'll leave it at that.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nwokolo. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
You're welcome.